Hi, guys. Today you're going to learn about, wait for it, paragraphs. And for next week, you're going to write some paragraphs from the research you've been doing. Well, that sounded boring. Thanks, Mr. Kirschman. I want to tell you why the topic of paragraphs, just saying the P word, will put a class to sleep, and how we can fix that. But before we go on, you tell me, what's a paragraph? I'll pause the video here. You chat in the box. What's a paragraph? Thanks. Yeah. Right. It's so many of those things. You're absolutely right. So if what we already know about paragraphs is true, what can be improved in our understanding of paragraphs? So here's what I think. The way we've learned to construct paragraphs or think about paragraphs is as interesting as boxes. In fact, I'm guilty of promoting that mindset, of saying to students, think of a paragraph as a box. I'm sorry. But is it wrong to think of paragraphs as boxes? This box here, this structure, was such a helpful way for me to learn how to write. Claim, reason, evidence, analysis, or CREA, is helpful because it organizes your ideas logically. CREA, claim, reason, evidence, and analysis, helps you, whoops, take your notes, your raw research, your data. It helps you organize your notes into this. See? So for a section on King's struggles, I went through notes and organized them logically. See how it flows logically? MLK wasn't always considered a hero. Claim. That's because in his day, a lot of people disapproved of his approach to civil rights. Reason/elaboration. For example, in 1967, when King began to speak out against the Vietnam War, only 32% of Americans approved of him. Evidence. This shows that he was doing things that made him unpopular. Analysis. You know, I could even build the rest of my paragraphs like this. In the same section, struggles and setbacks, I can take the same CREA formula and write another paragraph to highlight and elaborate on King's struggles and setbacks. So what do you think? Even though he was condemned for protesting the Vietnam War, King pushed forward into new causes like campaigning against housing discrimination and poverty. He did this because they were issues that immediately affected many African Americans. For example, his biographer said, "What good is the right to sit at a lunch counter if you can't afford to buy a hamburger?" This shows that by the time MLK's life was cut short, he was branching out into new causes. It works, right? Yeah, it does, to an extent. Look, the paragraph is clear, but it has its limits. Frankly, it's sort of boring to read paragraph after paragraph in the CREA model. It sounds like what it is, a formula. The sentences are about the same length. The paragraphs have the same structure, and the paragraphs are about the same size. It looks and sounds boxy, like a robot, not a human being wrote it. And even though this is informational text, what I've got here, I still have to persuade my reader to keep reading by keeping up the interest. So here's what you're going to learn today. You'll learn to analyze professional paragraphs to see how real writers organize their ideas. This will show you some new techniques so you can write engagingly in a style that will keep your readers' interest. And you'll know you're successful when you can take what you already know about paragraphs and use those skills in new ways. So here's how we can rethink paragraphs as boring boxes, or let's rethink them as not boring boxes. We can see how a professional writer does it and what we can learn from this particular professional writer. Let's take apart or analyze. That's what analyze means. It means break apart. Let's analyze some professional writing. Let's look at a couple of examples from this scope writer. This is a section from one subtopic from that article that I've been showing you the past couple of weeks. The subtopic is on King's struggles and setbacks. I'm going to stop the video here. I want you to take a minute and read this page. Everyone has a minute now to read the excerpt on the screen. I'm going to pause the video here, okay? Great, thanks. Now, chat in the box. What do you notice about the way this section is written? Or how is it similar and or different from my paragraphs? I'll pause the video again. Compare and contrast this page from with my two paragraphs. Good, chat in the box. Thanks. Here's what I noticed. This writer uses claim, reason, evidence, elaboration, and analysis, but it's more than one paragraph. And it's not all the same size paragraphs. It flows by developing the main idea and going back and forth between evidence and elaboration. Next, I want to show you exactly how this writer did it. Hold on a second. I took the same section and annotated it. I want to show you exactly what's going on in this section. The header makes the subtopic really clear. As the claim slash main idea. There's reason slash elaboration, and there's evidence for that elaboration. There's evidence for the main idea. Then there's more evidence, an expert quote, and then further elaboration of the main idea. There's further elaboration through evidence. There's further elaboration of the subtopic, and then there are consequences. Now, that's one section. Let's take a look at the next section, where the writer concludes on the more work that needs to be done. And let's see what happens here. Again, the writer included a header to make the subtopic clear. But then in contrast with this section where the writer starts off with the main idea, in this section, the writer is starting off with the background info and then giving the main idea and then evidence for the main idea and then more evidence for the main idea and then a conclusion based on the evidence or an analysis and then expert support of that analysis and finally evidence using direct quote from an expert. And I'm noticing these two sections are not organized in the exact same way, are they? They have all those things you know about claim, reason, evidence, analysis, and elaboration, but in different order. So, oops. Hold on a second. Right there. Thank you. So in the writing we just saw, the paragraphs flowed into each other. They hooked into each other. And some paragraphs were longish, some were short, and in those paragraphs, the sentences could be different lengths too. Some sentences were fairly long and some were short, but all the paragraphs joined together to create a subtopic rather than just being one box on top of the other. So for this week's assignment, you're going to practice. You're going to experiment with how you write your paragraphs. So if you feel pretty good about experimenting, trying something new, if you got this, if you say, hey, I really do get claim, reason, evidence, analysis, and elaboration, here's what I'd like you to do. Use claim, reason, elaboration, evidence, analysis, use all that stuff, and arrange these in any order that helps your paragraphs flow. Now, if you're struggling saying, I don't know how to write a paragraph very well, it's hard for me, then I invite you to continue using claim, reason, elaboration, evidence, and analysis in that order. Use the formula if you need to. Because look, the most important part and skill that you're learning is that your research is organized. So if you're struggling, use the formula. Some of you have not finished your outline, so please do that first. It might mean that you have a little extra work this week, but it's worth it. This video will be posted on Schoology. And now, what questions do you have?